Hello and welcome to Wizards, Warriors and Words, a writing advice podcast. I'm Jed Herne, only I'm not, I'm Rob Hayes, our illustrious leader. Jed Herne is currently in the workshop having a software upgrade. So we're doing this lovely low effort episode where he's asked us to talk about a few books which have helped us with the craft of writing, of which we've learned something about the craft of writing. So I'm Rob Hayes, and these are the three books that I chose. Number one, Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Oh, it's an old book. It smells brilliant. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is actually Royal Assassin, not Assassin's Apprentice. The thing is, this is my original copy of Royal Assassin, and my original copy of Assassin's Apprentice has been lent around so many times. I actually have no idea where it is anymore. I have no idea who has it. It's gone. It's unfortunate because I no longer have the full set. So we'll go with this one. This is the one that I got a couple of years ago, my illustrated edition of the Assassin's Apprentice, which I haven't actually got around to reading yet. But it's glorious. It's beautiful. And it's full of lovely artwork like that. And that has nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about, but brilliant. So, what do I feel I have learned from Assassin's Apprentice? I feel with this series, it's meant so much to me over the years. I've read it multiple times, and I love it so much. Apart from being the first book and series that I ever read which were written in first person, which is a major thing. I didn't really realize writing could be in first person until I was reading these books about 20 odd years ago, I think it is. And I think what I learned most about it was just how to build such a core of emotion into the story and into the characters. Because it is, I mean, there is so much emotion in these books. I cried multiple times reading these. They are so well written in such a way that it really puts you in the mind of the character, in the heart of the character, and you really feel what they're feeling. And that's something that I definitely learned through reading these books, how to just instill emotion within the characters, within the words. And hopefully, I think I've learned something. I think I've learned something. I mean, I don't want to do anything near as well as this, but one day maybe. So you'll notice here, by the way, I'm choosing more modern books. The others might choose slightly older books, but I've never read any how to write books or anything like that myself. I learned everything through reading of a fiction books myself and just trying it out myself. So my second book, which I'm picking, is this one. Retribution Falls by Chris Wooding, which is probably an off-the-wall choice, but there we go. Anyone who follows me on social media will probably already know that I am a massive Chris Wooding fanboy. I love everything of his I've ever read because it's brilliant, but it doesn't smell quite as good as my original copy of Royal Assassin, but there we go. So I think what I learned most about these books, this series, the Tales of the Ketty J, is just how to have fun. They are fun and they are serious, and then it's the mix between those two. I sort of, when I was reading these, I realized, I think for the first time, that you can write a series which is entirely serious and yet also be full of humor, which is definitely something that I never really realized before. I thought, you were either reading sort of comedy or you were reading a serious sort of thing. And I don't particularly like comedy in books myself. I like humor in books, don't like comedy. It's weird. And what I found in these is just they are hilarious while also being serious. And because of that, they meant a lot to me. They meant a lot to me realizing how I wanted my voice to be within my books. I read this entire series, or at least all the ones that were out at the time, I think about a year or so before I wrote The Heresy Within. So they definitely had an impact upon me and how I wanted my voice within my books to sound, because I like to have humor in my books and come across within the things that happen within them, but not comedy. So yeah, my second book, Retribution Falls by Chris Woody. And then I'm going to cheat. For my third book, I'm going to pick Firefly, which is not a book. I know. It's a TV series, but the dialogue that you find in this series is absolutely masterful. And I don't think there's been any book or any other TV series which has taught me as much about how to deliver dialogue as this one. It's perfect on so many levels. It sounds realistic. And that's one of the biggest things for me. I always strive to have the dialogue in my books sound realistic. It could happen. These are people talking to each other. It's not staged. And I took a lot from this series, and that's how I sort of like to try and structure my own dialogue through the lessons that I learned through things like Firefly. It's serious. It's flavorful. It's humorous. It's brilliant, and it's realistic. And each of the characters is so well written in their dialogue that another character could deliver that line of dialogue and you'd still be like, I think that dialogue should belong to this character. It's that good. And it's also a really good TV series, which you should all check out if you haven't already, but you probably already have. So anyway, yes, for the sake of amazing dialogue, the third book that I'm picking in this here low effort episode is a TV series, Firefly.
Everybody, we were asked for this episode to each talk a little bit about some of the books, actually 3 books we were told, that most influenced or that we learned most about craft, most influenced our craft, or we learned most about craft and have applied in our writing. I'm going to cheat a little bit and talk about a little more than 4. And it's really hard to separate story from craft. So some of the things I talk about might be a little more story about story than craft, but I'll try to stick to craft. I would say, and I have props. I would say that the books that I learned the most about how to I don't know that I write pretty prose, but the books that stick out to me so much for that are these: Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. They also scope of story and depth. The Silmarillion would go in here too. Depth of background and world. So that's getting more into story. But Tolkien's writing, I read very slowly and very carefully, and I've reread these books a number of times, and I love how he uses prose. And that definitely falls under craft. I'm nowhere near as good as he is, but there are sometimes when I try. There are a couple of places, particularly in the first book, where I try to do some perhaps Tolkien-esque, reach for Tolkien-esque prose because of the way he describes things and how he brings in certain characters, the way he structures those sentences. Again, I don't think my writing is anything like his, but I study it pretty hard and would hope to be able to write like that someday, maybe. Without, the big long digressions, and it has, its issues. But as far as craft, I just absolutely love the way Tolkien puts words and sentences, paragraphs together. So that's a big one. As far as what I can get away with prose and even with story, gotta say Roger Zelazny, particularly these 3 books. He's often most well known for his Amber Chronicles, and there's a lot of that in there too. But these really show his ability to play with prose, what you can actually get away with and what you can do with prose. So these books in particular are just crazy. This one, Jack of Shadows, is less known and perhaps the most insane of his works. I'm going to read one of my favorite quotes from him. This is Zelazny talking about writing. Occasionally there arises a writing situation where you see an alternative to what you are doing, a mad, wild gamble of a way for handling something, which may leave you looking stupid, ridiculous, or brilliant. You just don't know which. You can play it safe there, too, and proceed along the route you've mapped out for yourself. Or you can trust your personal demon who delivered that crazy idea in the first place. Trust your demon, Roger Zelazny. One of my very, very favorite writers and very influential on me. Of course, I don't think I do anything as well as he does, but again, has definitely influenced my craft as well as some of my storytelling style. Specific stuff, more specific stuff, Crimson Queen, Alec Hudson. I was reading and realized that he doesn't say he said, she said, name said very often. He does when it's necessary, but Alec has a way of writing, and there are plenty of other authors too, but this is the one that I really noticed it in more recently and have tried to emulate some of the ways that he does it by structuring his prose so that you don't have to actually say those things and do those things, and you still know exactly who's talking. So it's a little harder, and that kind of thing can be a little more difficult in scenes where you have multiple characters, more than 2 or 3 speaking. But he's a genius at that kind of stuff, and extremely well-written books. If you ever want to read the Raveling series, you could learn, I think, quite a bit from that in terms of this and any number of other things as far as writing in prose. So the Raveling series, Crimson Queen is the first one. Let's see. I've read a ton of books on writing, all of the big ones that are out. I get a little bit from all of them. So when reading those things, none of them are genius in a Bible. Most of it has all been done before and been said before, just in different ways. The writing books, including Stephen King's On Writing. But there's something that I pick out from each one of those that I find really interesting. When I was first beginning to put together and write the Paternus trilogy, the book that helped me absolutely the most is not actually a book on writing. It's called How to Read Novels Like a Professor by Thomas Foster. He gets into these amazing analyses and critiques of segments from all kinds of books, including fantasy. There's a segment where he talks at length about how J.R.R. Tolkien talks about the gates of Mordor. So it's awesome. And I also learned terminologies about point of view, things that I don't have an MA in creative writing. So there were certain terminologies I wasn't familiar with. So I learned a lot about that, plus just how certain things are done with as far as POV. What makes it omniscient? What makes it tight third person POV? There's a lot of that kind of stuff that you learn in here so that you can then use it to look at prose. And it was fascinating, still is. I still go back to it again, how to read novels like a professor. And there's one thing I wanted to grab that I have to show. Here we go. And I'm back. Believe it or not, the Hunger Games trilogy. This was one of the books I had planned on writing first person, or not first person, but present tense. But this is written not just first person, but also present tense. So as far as writing in present tense, this helped me a lot. I read it before I began writing the Paternus trilogy, and this helped me tremendously in how to do that, even though it's also written in first person present tense. A lot of people just don't remember that when I bring it up. They're like, it was? Yes, it was. And really great books too. So I think that's about it for me. Tolkien, Zelazny, Alec Hudson, the How to Read Novels Like a Professor, and Suzanne Collins, The Hunger Games. All right? So there you go. Thanks. Hope everybody is well.
So what about you? As the readers, the listeners, the viewers, whatever, let us know in the comments, I guess, which books, which TV series, whatever, has taught you the most about how to write. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching Wizards, Warriors and Words. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so that we can keep growing this and keep sharing our writing advice with more authors. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.